we're on day 3 today. Also, sorry for the weird camera. I don't know what Apple did recently. There's been an update, and now I can either just use the ultra-wide camera or the normal camera, but it's in this weird following continuity cam thing, which I guess is cool, but I don't know, I don't like it. I like my camera to be still, but for quality's sake, I think I'm going to keep it to this. Also, sorry, I'm just looking at what I look like when it's following me. It's weird. Ugh. Anyway, day 3. We just did day 2, which was sucky. It was the torso skeleton. And like I mentioned in that video, I don't know if you guys watched it, we're going to be going back to that at some point. I did a little bit of practice today on it, but I don't know, it sucks. We'll go back to it. But today we're going to focus on the skull, which another great feature. I love drawing skulls. There's so much you can do around skulls. And yeah, it's probably one of my favorite things to draw. I draw it in my spare time often. And I just want to show you guys a little thing I do before we get started. This is just a life thing. For you guys drawing, set yourself goals every month. I've got my little goals in my book, and we've got different things like upload 5 videos to YouTube. That's one of them. Grow to 200 subscribers. Read halfway through a book that I'm reading at the moment. Just small goals like that, and that's for the month. So I've set these goals for the month, and I'm going to be going through it. I've already uploaded one. We uploaded a video today as of filming, which was the day 2. Great. Now we're doing day 3, and I'm really happy that I'm on it and I'm making another video. But I'm not going to keep dragging on. Today's tool of choice will be digital again. We're using my Wacom One tablet. And yeah, let's go back into here. Now, I've got the references once again, as usual. We're always ready with the references. Make sure this is full screen. Yep, there we go. We've always got the references on hand. Drawing glove on hand. These you can find once again in the link below. It's a link to my entire Pinterest for all the references. So if you want to follow along, please grab a piece of paper, grab anything you use to draw, your iPad, whatever. Come join us. We're going to be working on the skeleton for today. We're not doing a practice round like I mentioned, because it was a very complex lesson last time. So without further ado, let's get the tool of choice. We're using the TB Choi brush again, the one I found online. I've been enjoying its sketchy feel recently. And yeah, I'm going to start off with, I think, the straight on view. Oh God, yeah, there we go. The straight view. This is what I like, forward facing. Right. Make sure that we always see the thing. Start off with a circle. A lot of the time you do actually end up using a circle for drawing a face. It's kind of what we're taught from the beginning of school. I found a nice little technique recently that people use. I'm going to do a line striking it through the middle. Obviously we're using our reference once again. We're always using the reference. Most important lesson you can take away from any of this is you keep looking at it. But now what I'm going to do is almost put this in like a cube. So I'm actually using the feature on Photoshop. I don't know if you guys know that if you hold shift, you can do straight lines, or you can hold shift and click and it will create straight lines for you. This is very useful for digital. If not, you can use a ruler or just freehand it. I'm going to freehand it now. Obviously it's not going to be as straight as the other ones, but that's all right. And I'm creating almost a box for this. Cool. So we've got the box. Now, what I'm doing is, if we pay attention to here, you see as like the front of the face is, imagine this, the box is around the skull here. The front of the face is more inwards. So what we're going to do is we're going to create that from here. So now we've got the skull at the back and we've got the front of the face. Now, since we've got that, what I'm going to do is do a little triangle here. You can actually use this method for drawing faces as well. Something that I use as well. I found this technique watching a YouTuber. I'll put the link in the description. But yeah, I think actually, wait, hold on. I think this triangle might go from here. But almost use this area for the eyes. Yeah, I think that's how it works. So use that area for the eyes, more or less. But as you can see, with the skulls, eyes are much bigger. So I'm going to place those in the middle here. We'll do circles at the moment. We're just learning where to place things at first. I think that's the best lesson we can take away from anything. And we're doing rough sketches. Don't need to be very precise at first. We can always go in and add all the detail later on. The jaw, if we can look and take any proportions from this stuff, we can see the eyes here more or less correlate to like the nose. So this bit goes to here. And then where you'd have the eyes, like imagine the pupils here, you can use those lines, so almost like the middle of these, to create where the teeth go. So this is where the skull has its teeth, to put simply. But if we're doing this kind of mathematically right now, but you can obviously do all this by feel. There's a method called the Loomis head, which this kind of plays off of, but at the moment I'm examining this using my own theory / observation, because I'd say about 50% of being an artist is your ability to observe what you see and take it into account. So what we are observing is that this is going to the middle of the eye. Like you can almost see a square building here. So using our observation skills, we can tell that roughly around here, I don't know why that keeps happening, this is where the end of the teeth that we can see from the front, that's where it ends. So, right, I'm gonna go in and now start going around. Cheekbones are, again, if we look from here, about level with the nose. So this is roughly where we are putting the shape. And then jaw comes in like this. I'm going to start putting in the teeth, just roughly. Don't need to be super accurate. Yeah. Let me know, guys, if you enjoy drawing skulls. I don't know what it's been, but I've always enjoyed drawing them. They have like a really cool shape to them. And I'm not weird, I promise. I promise I'm not weird. I think there's just something cool about them. So the teeth, yeah, they're very cartoony at the moment, but I think we'll go in and refine stuff. Voice break. I think we'll go in and refine this stuff afterwards. Maybe my throat's getting dry. I don't know. I hate when that happens. It makes me feel like I'm like 3 years old again or something. Well, not 3. Going through puberty. Anyway. Teeth in. And we can see that the jaw almost comes in here. This is a rough shape that we're building here. The chin is like this. I didn't even realize this before. Right now it's looking very scary. It's almost grinning. But maybe I'm going too much off of this math stuff rather than focusing on what I want to create here. But if we look at the reference, he looks pretty happy, right? Looks pretty happy to be here. Look at him. He looks pretty chill. He looks happy to be here. Pretty much no expression on his face, but you know. Right. Now this shape here, this cheekbones, going in around and up here. Right? You know what? I almost feel like sometimes drawing a skull without looking at a reference of it, for me, it's turned out better than this, but we're going to get there. It's all a work in progress. This may look really weird and funky at the moment, but I think we're going to get there in the end. It always gets fixed around the end. Now I'm drawing the rough shape around it. Now, why do I think it's important that we study the skull? Well, one, it's cool. Like I said, I think this is one of my favorite parts to study in terms of the skeleton of like the human. And two, it's just good to have this underlying structure when you're drawing a face, because you know where to put your cheekbones, you know where to put the chin and the jaw. You just know more or less how it works. Plus we've got the breakdown of the anatomy, and it's a foundation. It's the fundamentals for a reason. You're supposed to know this stuff because it helps you build a stronger house, So clean this up a little bit. Cool. The nose is obviously a lot different than what I've drawn it as here. A little bit more funky. It's a bit bendy. Cool. Get that in. Hope you guys are practicing this. I'm enjoying doing this series because it is keeping me accountable to do my practice. I've always slacked on practicing this stuff, and now I feel like, hey, one, I've got a reason to practice, and two, I feel like I have almost got an obligation to do it now. Hey, you've started this thing on YouTube now, you've got to keep going with it. You've got to get this out. So it's almost a win-win for me. One, I'm enjoying doing this, and two, it's practice. Practice that I would not normally get in and normally slack. And the reason why is due to something called talent. And this is something I might go into more in a future actual video, but I think the word talent ruins a lot of our potential. And this is me speaking from experience. I think it ruins potential because it makes you complacent and it makes you think, oh, I'm talented, I don't need to practice. And that's so far from the truth, man. Like, if we're not learning every day and we're not like putting in the time and suffering at something, then it's just not going to look good. We're not going to grow as people. We're just going to stand still and stay where we were the day before or the week before. So it's just something you got to take seriously, man. You got to ask yourself, it's like, hey, do you want to be an artist that just doesn't move, or do you want to be someone that's better every day? And you can't get there without putting in the time. So I think it's very important that we practice. And with that, I would like to say, look, as soon as we change the eyes, it doesn't look goofy anymore. Now we're looking more mean. We're looking skullish. Skullish. It's a skull now. I'm going to do a little bit of shading here, but it's cross-hatching more of this brush. Pretty good for cross-hatching in my opinion. Look at that. We're putting in more detail and it's starting to look a little bit more like a skull. And I'm going to slowly but surely start removing these guidelines that we were using just so we can see what we've built. We're taking down the scaffolding, the foundation. There's a foundation to everything we do. You can see that clearly. There's a foundation behind the structure of a foundation, because the skull is a foundation already. But we're putting all these different things in to make it easier to draw. And that's all it is. It's like, I don't know, I don't think you could build a house without scaffolding. You need that sort of stuff to make your life easier and to hold things together. So, you can just take aspects of everyday life everywhere and you can apply it to everything you do. Easiest life lessons. getting a bit real this episode, I noticed. But best thing we can do, be real with ourselves. No lying around. Cool. I'm actually quite happy with where this is going. Get a little bit more of the detail, or the scaffolding, as I called it earlier, out of here. Nope, that's pretty cool. You can also see that the shape of the head is a little bit more strange up here. It's got the Tyler 1 head. Cool. Alright, I do like where this has gone. I'm going to put in some of the shading, which shading is going to be a whole day in itself. It's going to be a whole freaking series in itself. Shading is difficult, hard to understand, but there's a couple of techniques that I've come to learn over the years, and I think you guys are going to enjoy seeing them. I've learned them from other YouTubers and other art teachers and things like that, so straight off the bat I can see that maybe we've made the nose a little bit too big, so I'm going to adjust that. And what I did in the previous episode is I used Liquify and I used the cutting tool, and thinking about it now, I don't want to do that because I want you guys who are at home, if you do have a pencil or paper, I know you guys don't have something like the Liquify tool, and I absolutely don't want you to be discouraged. I don't want you to be like watching at some point and be like, oh, this guy has tools, like I can't do that, so I'm not going to continue. No, I want you guys to follow along, so I'm going to try and keep to that as much as I can. Obviously there's just some things in digital that you cannot get with traditional work, so do keep that in mind. But I hope you do not get discouraged at all, because that's not why we're doing this. We're doing this to learn together. And that is the front view. I'm also starting to get tired of this brush now. I don't know, maybe it's been a bit too long. Obviously this is a digital feature, but I'm just moving the picture along, so don't worry about that. I want to have space. So now the side profile. I think the side profile is a little bit more complicated, but let's see how we do. Again, I think we're gonna build a 3D structure for this, so it's a little bit more. I'm gonna go halfway through here, and notice it's not a perfect circle sideways. The head is like really long. Look at that, it's like Alien out here. So we've done that here as well. We're keeping that in mind. We are observing what we see on the reference, and then we're putting it into practice. So I'm going to keep fairly zoomed out. There's just no, things are not going right today. Anyways, maybe I'm just talking too much. My voice isn't built for long talking sessions. I think the best approach for this is that we sculpt this the most, because like even though we do have the general guidelines here, I think they're not going to do as useful as the previous ones. Let's see, we've got the triangle here that we built earlier, and if we draw a circle within this here, that will more or less, because if we look at the profile of the head, there is almost like an inner circle here, right? I think the ear is somewhere over here, so I think it makes more sense if the ear, yeah, so what we're going to do is build that circle that we were building up front, because this is where the ear would go, more or less. And then inwards, see, this is where it gets complicated. I'm going to make a face plane, or whatever you want to call it here, which is where we'll put the eyes. Now, like I said, I'm going to come in here and sculpt this away. So we're almost, if you imagine this to be a circle, we're just removing this part. I can't remember what the term was. I used to do CAD work and there was extrude or something as an option. And inwards, nose actually sticks out quite a lot. You can see we cut it out. And from the nose, I can see that the eye comes in here and connects. So it's almost within the line that we built earlier. So there's a line here, and this is where we're building the eye. It's in here, the nose bone here, cut away. And now we're in a bit of a pickle. I feel like I should have that further back. But the shape here is coming outwards like this. So imagine these are the teeth here. So I'm going to mark it with this line over here. And then the chin goes outwards. Cool. Now, building it back inwards, I'm going to connect the jaw up to pretty much the bottom of our circle. So here. Cool. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so you guys have more screen. Okay, Jesus. More screen to see, and the reference we will put up here. Cool. Should have done this from the start. Absolutely should have. Don't like how this is all flickering. Alright, so we've got more or less this. I'm going to mark where the... Okay, so the eye is here, as we can see. Goes to the bottom. Proportionally, this is the cheekbone here connecting. And more or less like this. And the eye is going in with this here. But it goes upwards. So I'm just trying to be a little bit more clear with this. And then we have the, I'm not sure what this part is called, but this is what we're looking at the moment in the drawing. So that's kind of almost wrapping around this shape that we just made. But I noticed that the shape's a bit wrong. So, but again, this is our design language, right? We are choosing where we want to put these things. However, we have to make smart decisions here because it has to make sense. When someone's looking at it, they have to know that's what they're looking at. So it's a choice, but it has to be a pretty educated choice. Cool. Okay, I think put that about right here. I'm going to start removing some of this just so we're a bit more clear on what's going on. Now this, yeah, the side profile is definitely more complex than the front profile. After this, I'm going to finish it off with a more complex I think it's called a 3/4 view. So we're going to see a little bit more 3D aspects in here. So again, to measure this more or less, this comes in here. Where this finishes, this little indent at the bottom starts to appear. So you're constantly, what you're doing in here is you're constantly comparing and judging the proportions of the face, where something finishes, where it comes off, and you're using the picture itself as a way to measure everything. As you can see this here, this can actually come in a little bit more. I think, yeah, we can get that a little bit. We're using these different parts to measure and to plot things. So now we can see that there's a part that goes like this in here. And there's a little circle that comes off of it. Like a circular thing where it connects the jaw to this skull. Almost feel like I'm going a little bit too far with this. So I'll connect it. Go a little bit more closer in. Also, a good note is to, rather than erase first, I remember this stuff was taught in school, rather than erasing something first, go over it and then erase what you have behind it. That way you can see where your mistake was and you can correct it. We're all about correcting mistakes here, because that's how you learn. So always keep that in mind. And then I'm going to do the jaw here. That's going to make a lot more sense. Round it off, because it is more of a round shape. Pay attention to the finer detail. Notice that the jaw here isn't just a straight line down. There is a bit of a crevice here. And you can even exaggerate it to help you out. But see this jaw here, the line that goes straight down. And now we're going to plot in some of the teeth. I'm not counting exactly. Maybe I should be counting. I always do this stuff by feel. I never actually count how many there are. Obviously, there's a set amount of teeth, and I feel stupid for not knowing it right now. But we're here for. Everyone knows that this is teeth. And I don't think anyone looks at your drawing and starts counting the amount of teeth that are in it. No sane person is going to do that. Okay, we have a gap there. Already I can see a mistake happening with this image, is that it's skewing a little bit. Because if I was to now flip the canvas, maybe not, oh, it's a bit strange. So if anything, I would correct this to be more in here, but you know what? This is where the liquify tool would come in very handy. Which is something I actually, if you are drawing digitally, I do want you to get into the habit of doing the liquify tool. So I think as we go along in these lessons, we're going to use that tool a little bit more, because for digital artists, it's almost essential part of your workflow. You should absolutely be utilizing the liquify tool as much as you can, because it's all about correcting. Also, yeah, I'm screwing that up. Let me go back. Sometimes you just gotta stay where you were. Alright, cool. And I think that's almost there. Like, we have this weird hole here, which I did not know we have a weird hole somewhere here. I don't know what that connects to. This, and then I think this is called the cranium. Is it called the cranium? Let me know in the comments. More or less, we are here. We have the shape of the skull. We've built it. And now we have more knowledge on what goes on under the hood. Which I guess this is the hood. And then there's even more under the hood. Also notice how this actually goes more down here rather than straight up. Look how much of a difference a subtle change like that just made to the drawing. Absolutely humongous. Gonna sort of finish off the shape here. I was really hoping that I practice my speaking, doing long form content like this with no editing, but right now it's going the other way around. Ooh, got the side of the skull pretty much done. Let's get a little bit of shading in here. Let's see if, you know, this brush doesn't like that. It feels like I could mess with the settings a little bit here. I don't know. I'm starting to not enjoy this brush as much. It doesn't seem to have a much of a, what's it called, opacity setting to it. I'm just going to roughly block in a little bit of dark areas, just to highlight some things. This here is dark. This here is dark. This here, whole side of the damn skull. I am planning to go back to some traditional videos next as well. At the moment, I think that it was a wiser choice doing this as it is late and it's pretty dark. So I think digital is definitely more convenient, but let me know if it's more convenient for you as well, or whether you prefer to watch the traditional stuff. Yeah, I did. I definitely enjoyed making it as well. So side view, and I'm also going to finish off today's session with a 3/4 view. I think that's going to be the biggest challenge of this whole thing. Stay hydrated. I'm mainly doing it because my throat's going dry. I've got a really cool picture here to use, but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to flip the canvas because I want it the other way around. There we go. Cool. Now the big challenge appears, the challenger. New layer. Starting off with, what in the, see, let's click the button. If you are using Photoshop, by the way, I don't know if this is like that for any other software. If you press like a number, it will hop to that opacity. So if I want 35, I'll press 35 quickly and now I have 35 opacity. If I want 100, I click 0 and I am back to 100 opacity. So let's start off with a giant circle, giantish circle. I'm not going to fit this in here. Make it a smaller circle. I'm going to start off a bit rougher than the previous ones we were doing. Cool. We've got this circle here. And I'm going to use our previous method to do more or less the end. And then I'm going to highlight where the middle is, and then I'm going to go around the circle to make it a sphere. And so this here is the middle of our sphere. And now I'm going to do a 3D block. So this, to make more sense of it, is going to be a 3D box. So we can make this easier for ourselves. This goes back a little bit. Cool. Very rough at the moment. That's alright. I'm going to do the trick again. Go this to the middle. I hope I got the perspective for this right. I may have overshot a little bit. Cool. And then I'm going to do the circle in a circle here, another square here, and it's going to go all the way back here. And I'm going to go in here and connect these two lines to create our jaw. So all of it breaking down into structure, more or less, just so we have the base outline. And then we're going to chip away at this. Get the eyes in here. Eyes automatically take up a little bit of a different shape when we're doing this. So like this, and here you can see it's almost a triangular or trapeze. Is that trapezium? It was a while since I've done maths. There. This goes inwards. So we are taking our time to construct the foundation for everything again. We like doing that. I see I have done a slightly different perspective for here, but that doesn't matter, it's alright. I'm gonna cut this out, start building the shape around it a little bit. The cheekbone almost cuts inwards here. And we can see that the cheekbone gets built around the bottom of the nose, like this. I'm gonna go down here. This bone builds around the circle we built earlier. We're using everything we've placed down here as guides for ourselves. I notice I'm running 35 minutes. Okay, we're keeping it in good time. We're keeping it in good time. I don't really want to make videos that are like almost an hour long. Like the previous one was like almost an hour long. I do want to keep it a little bit shorter, so hoping to keep this one to a lower time frame. This again, sculpting out what we see. And look at that, we've already got a shape of a skull building here. That's happened quickly. All right, got this bone coming in here, connecting here. Something, oh yeah, the jaw chips away here, doesn't it? And where does looking at this image here, where does that connect? More or less here, right? We can see that. If we look at the image, we see that it's connecting here, and this is connecting here. So we're using that as a guide. Again, use your image as a guide. And we'll have it connect inwards, and that goes there. So now we've really built this out. Let's get the teeth coming in. I definitely need to get a little bit more comfortable with my line work. And what I'm going to start implementing, I did forget to do this in this episode, is a little warm-up at the beginning. So, usually the warm-up would actually be the practice from the lesson before or the day before. But other than that sort of warm-up, I'm thinking more line warm-up and circle warm-up, which is something I'll show you guys because it's something we did in school and I thought it was actually really handy. So I'll show you that in the next episode. Try and remember. But a genuine hand warm-up for drawing is always a good idea because you tend to make much higher quality line work that way. Okay. Got like a little dot here. And a little dot there, and inwards. The nose, like some inner bone there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off here and we're going to fill it in. As you can see, I'm not focusing on too many details and I'm not zooming in because zooming in it's not as good as you think it is because then you start focusing on things you really shouldn't be focusing on, and that is not our goal. So got that here, got the bone. So we are putting in a couple details, but we're not focusing on them too much. Cool. Shape of the skull. Got the cranium, which I hope it is the cranium, and I hope I've been saying this stuff right. I need to learn my anatomy words. Cool. Shape is building around there. We can start removing some of this scaffolding that we created earlier. The weird bone at the bottom here. And at the bottom there. Look at that, it's all coming together. All of it. Right now, it's very rough, but we are sketching, we're learning here. We don't need these to be absolutely perfect drawings. They can be rather simple. And very rough. Now we've zoomed in a little bit, we can actually go in with a little bit of detail. I'm going to go in with a tiny bit of shading. feel like I should be using a different brush for shading, because this one just not here for that. So I'm going to use a little bit of cross-hatching to emphasize certain parts. We can do the little crack. Why not? The little cracks. Bone is very weird material. There's always like a line going down here on our skull. No idea why. It just happens to be. And that goes out. This here we can work on. This, as we can see, the jaw actually goes a little bit inwards and then rounds out. And remember what we were talking about earlier. Look at that. I forgot about it. The jaw does have this sort of shape to it. But that is, I'm very happy with this at the moment. I think it's coming out really well. There's also random dots, holes here, because why not? This skull is a very strange thing. Cool, look at that. I think that is pretty good, and I think we're at a good spot to call it a day here. This is definitely something we're going to be practicing. So, you know, don't think you're getting away with it for the next video. It's also me talking to myself. We are definitely going to come in on the next one, and at the beginning we're going to take this and we are going to draw the skull from memory, just so we solidify all this knowledge that we're gaining. Absolutely. So now I'm just going in and doing pretty much almost unnecessary details. I mean, unnecessary, all details are usually necessary, but for what we're trying to learn here, they're not that needed. Now it's fun. You do get into the flow occasionally, and you start doing these things. Also, to a little bit of a mistake there. This works slightly differently. You can see that connects here, and then we've got a line going here. Cool, look at that. I'm happy with that. I don't know how you feel. I feel that's pretty good, and I really hope your drawings came out just as good as this. Highlight it. You know, it's okay to be proud of your work. I think we've done a pretty good job here. I think that looks pretty sweet. I'm just a fan of drawing skulls, but that's there. You know, we're gonna at some point also come back to skulls again and look at them from the back. I think a good lesson to do would be to grab all of this stuff, and then once we've learned to draw the entire skeleton, draw it from the other side. I think that would be pretty cool. But yeah, to wrap this up, back to the weird camera. This has been a good lesson, in my opinion. I'm a big fan of drawing skulls, and I hope you are as well. But in the next one, I'm not too sure what we're going to tackle. I think we're going to go for the full, you know, legs. Yeah, legs. There we go, legs. We'll go for legs next. We've done the arms, we've done the torso, done the skull. Now it's time for the legs. And then we're going to connect everything together and go from there. So I do hope you've enjoyed this day of training at Seb's art gym. Make sure you do practice this again. You know, this is something you can do in your spare time. You know, if you got a little bit, couple minutes, grab your pencil, get your paper, draw a skull. That's what I do, and I love drawing them. And it's definitely helped me with the recognition of where I should put things whenever I'm drawing a face. So again, it's an important foundation. It's an important scaffolding for your drawings. So if you did enjoy this video, leave a like. If you want to see the next videos, leave a sub, and hope you've had an awesome day. Get drawing, draw some skulls. Let me know how it went in the comments, and I'll see you in the next day or the next one, whatever you want to call it. Have a good one.